Today I'm going to try and go through a few tips on barbel baits that will hopefully help you catch a few like this one. Just slip it straight back. If I'm fishing for what I call shoaly barbel, where they're you're looking to catch numbers of barbel, particularly in daylight, I find an 8mm pellet, it can be much more productive than a bigger pellet. It's certainly my starting point, so all it do is thread it onto the needle, onto a short hair. Sort of size 12 hook is perfect for these 8mm pelletos. Spicy crab has done me very well over the years, but I've also done very well on the cheesy garlic and the crab, so I like to carry all of them and then just vary, but the spicy crabs, the spicy sausage is a good starting point. So just pull a pellet stop in, and nice and simple, not too long a hair, and then you can either fish that with a PVA bag of free offerings or with a feeder. When I'm barbel fishing on a big river, I often use a ground bait based feeder, an open end cage feeder with a ground bait mix in, and you can vary your mix and put different size pellets in, but it's always good to have something, a good basic starting. So these are 8mm pellets that I've had soaking for about an hour just to soften them up, makes them a bit more sticky and binding, and they also start giving off more flavour and have more attraction. I mean, obviously they're going to be, you can see how they've swelled up a bit, they're softer on the outside. The fish are going to be able to smell them from much further away straight away. So to that I'll add a tin of hemp with all the water it comes with. Always take your tin home. And then before I add the ground bait, I'll choose, depending which hook bait I'm favouring on the day, I'll put a bit of a boost of oil in there, a good glug. So a nice squirt of oil just to increase the attraction. Mix the hemp and the pellets. And what I'm looking for is quite a firm ground bait. I want it to sit in the feeder. It's got to travel through the river. It's going to be in the current being washed. So it's not like you're bream fishing on a still water where you want it to explode out. It's the exact opposite of that. What you're trying to do is create a ground bait that's actually going to sit in. This one's a marine method mix, a lot of halibut in there. It's quite a fine ground bait, but that's a nice complement to the bigger pellets and the hemp. Just add a little bit at a time. Depending how much you make up, you might want to add a bit more water, because what we're trying to do is get almost a stodgy ground bait, because it's got to sit in that river with the flow going past. But the beauty of this is, because there's lots of different sized particles, it's going to go down river at different speeds. So the big pellets will sit fairly close to where they go in and just trundle down, whereas the lighter granular bits out of the method mix, they're going to flow downstream much quicker and act as a big attractant to draw fish from a long way down, hopefully. So you're looking to use this as a way of drawing fish to your hook bait. I talked earlier on hook baits about using a longer hook link, and quite often the bigger fish will be a little bit more wary. So a long hook link will mean that they'll just be the fish that are lying downstream of the feeder, don't want to come right up. You're going to pick those fish up. So you can see now, I'll give you a good squeeze. It's quite doughy, puddingy. That's what I want, because I want that to go in the feeder, because I don't want it to come out straight away. I want that to break down over a few minutes potentially. Obviously if you get a bite and lift the rod, it'll come out, but it's acting as a nice steady stream of attraction straight down over your hook bait. So to load the feeder, just stick it in, and then you can vary it depending on the flow and the depth. That you can squeeze this really hard so that it's literally coming out like that, or you can squeeze it. I'll just take that out just so I can show you the alternative. Or you can just squeeze it fairly gently, just so it doesn't going to come out on the cast, but it's nowhere near as hard. And perhaps the first 2 or 3 casts I'd put it in like that so that it comes out fairly quickly. I can then recast with the bait having come out the feeder, and then once I start fishing when I've got a little bit of bait into the swim, I can then go back to the really squeeze it hard, because I don't want it to come out, and that just acts as a huge amount of attraction upstream, with little bits breaking off, bits of hemp, bits of pellet rolling downstream, drawing fish up and straight over your hook bait. Another useful tip with hook baits is glugging them in an oil. This is hemp oil that's got some hemp and spicy sausage flavouring in. And the beauty of the oil is that it's going to absorb into the pellets over time, and that will then make the pellets break down a little bit slower, but it will also give a nice oily slick, so you get the benefit of your pellet lasting a little bit longer on the hair. So you can, if it's slow and you want to leave your hook bait out for a bit longer than, and not disturb the swim recasting, if you glug them in this for an hour or so before you cast out, they'll be nicely soaked in, and those pellets will last a little bit longer and they'll have a little bit more boosted flavour. Another way of getting bait into your swim is using PVA, which is basically a soluble mesh. So when it goes in, it dissolves in the water and releases your bait. So they're really easy to tie a PVA bag up. Just put 8mm pellets in, about a golf ball size, maybe a bit less, but you can do as many as you want. Tighten them up, just squeeze them down, and then just twist. So you've got a nice tight bit of PVA, just a simple overhand knot. But don't leave it there. You then do another knot, and then that's ready for the next one. So you just want those knots as close as possible so you don't waste your PVA. And then you just cut that. And there's 2 ways of attaching that to your line. You can either nick the hook through, or you can use one of the clever little gizmos that Avid do, that you can slide in and use the knot, and I'll show you how to use that later. One of the problems with PVA, particularly in deep water and in warm water and fast flowing water, is it can dissolve very, very quickly in the water. Obviously it's a chemical reaction, so as the temperature goes up. So one way of boosting it, you can boost your bait and make the PVA more melts more slowly, and that's just get a little plastic bag, and you can glug them in a bit of the cheesy garlic or spicy sausage oil. You've got to do this really on the bank, because if you leave it for too long, what you'll find is that the PVA gets so impregnated it won't actually dissolve, and you'll end up, if you're not careful and the temperatures drop, you'll end up winding one of these back in on the end of your hook, which is not really what you're after. But a little bit of a soak in the warm weather, just turn it around, so you've then boosted your pellets. They're going to take on a lot more flavour, and that'll, as that sinks through the water, it's not going to dissolve as quickly, so it's going to drop to the bottom fairly quickly. Then the PVA will melt, trundle off, and you've got pellets. And the beauty of that is they're going to, compared to a feeder, is they're going to stay right where they where the PVA melts, where they've landed, and you're going to get a little mound of pellets that just trundle off downstream straight past your hook link, drawing barbel in. Good time. I mean, I often use a PVA bag on a downstream rod if I'm using 2, and then so you've got your feeder with the finer ground bait going in at the top, and then just a simple PVA bag around your hook bait on the downstream rod. But once you know barbel are in the swim, you don't need to keep using a feeder, because there's a risk that they're going to keep putting more food out and the fish might follow that bait downstream. With these, you can nail it onto the bottom, and with a big bait, big pellets, they're going to just trundle along very slowly. So you're not putting huge amounts of bait in, but you're putting enough in that will keep the fish interested long enough for you to hopefully catch them. Two ways you can hook your PVA bags on. You can either just nick it through the mesh on the hook, but if you want to get it so that the bait is by the lead, you can actually use a little gizmo that's got a loop, wider loop, and then it tapers, so you push the knot of the PVA bag through the wide bit and slide it down, and it sits perfectly, and that will stay on, and that means your bait is then going to enter the water and being released upstream of your hook bait. Another little trick you can use to boost your attraction of your feeder is these little liquids, haze. You can just push it into the feeder and just give it a good squeeze, and you're going to get loads and loads of attraction of that, and it's just going to give a big boost, hopefully, to draw the barbel to your swim. And if you put a bit in, just top it off just to keep it in so that it stays in on the way down. You can see it's coming out there, and if you drop that in the edge, you'll see what a cloud comes off it, and any self-respecting barbel is going to come and have an investigate to see what that lovely smell's coming from. Well, the haze boosted feeder has done the trick. Gone an hour without a bite, put some haze in the feeder, 5 minutes later, bang. Lovely colours on that one, a little bit of a damaged tail, didn't stop it fighting well. We've had a lovely day on the Severn. Hopefully the tips I've given you will help you put some more barbel on the bank. The light's beginning to go now, so hopefully these tips will start going again with another one or two. Good luck, spicy sausage, cheesy garlic, you can't go wrong.